Welcome to Meet Me in the City, a podcast exploring music through the boroughs of America. Today, we are joined by a guest who, as we started this, we were talking before we started rolling that as we had our first couple guests on, we had our first couple conversations, we had this guy's name just kept coming up. He was doing this. He was booking that. You got to talk to him. He was around for all of these shows and these bands who were on the come up, and he booked him. So today on the podcast, we are, well, first, joined as always by my friends and co-hosts, Dan and Shawn. Boys.
Hello.
Hello.
We're so happy to be talking to Ken.
Yeah. Today we have on the podcast Ken Gross. Ken, thanks for joining us today.
Yes,
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you were just getting ready to launch into a story that you had, and I think we don't even know what the story is, but I have a sense that this is a good starting point for our conversation.
Well, we were talking earlier about. I was saying I'm not from Dayton,
Right.
originally. I'm an Air Force brat.
Yeah.
My parents are both from.
Just leave that, yeah, because it'll pick up.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
My parents are both from California.
Okay.
My mom's from Santa Barbara. My dad's from like Culver City area.
Okay.
And he's like L.A. She's a little bit more rural, I guess you would call it. From now, it's kind of a vacation destination. But
Okay.
At any rate, my mom was going to college in Rice University in Houston, Texas.
Okay,
And my father enlisted in the Air Force. This is 1950.
Wow.
And so that's how my parents met.
Wow.
And then we're an Air Force family for
Yep.
the next, until 1970. We moved to Dayton when I was 16. So
Okay.
that's how I came to be in Dayton. And,
Yeah.
of course, been here ever since. That's 55 years.
Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Yep.
Yep.
And anyway,
So your dad he went to Wright Pat, or he was stationed there?
right. My dad was stationed at Wright Pat.
Okay.
And
The rest is history that we're about to talk about.
I probably, I think my introduction to like the music scene
Yeah.
was through Jim Carter.
Okay.
And Kat, his wife, and I were in high school together.
Okay.
And so shortly after high school, she met Jim, and he's just a friend of mine, just one of my buddies. And over the years, Jim did all kinds of things. In the late 70s, early 80s, Jim did a lot of shows, and I always went to his shows.
Okay. I don't think Jim has come up yet. So this is
Right.
another
Yeah,
story.
yeah,
Again,
Rev Cool.
Oh, okay.
At WYSL.
Oh, yeah.
He's been on the air out there over 40 years.
Yeah.
oh, that's Jim
That's
Carter.
right.
That's Jim
I only
Carter.
know him as Rev Cool.
Yeah, I only know him
Yeah.
as Rev Cool too, and we've all had conversations.
Yeah.
With Rev,
Oh,
so-
hilarious.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
So
Rev Cool has definitely come up.
Jim is definitely the genesis of all this.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Because let's see, when I was in my late 20s, I was going to shows at like the Walnut Hills on Wayne Avenue, and seeing bands like Toxics and the Dates, and then from there, I think Jim evolved. He did shows at Brookwood Hall. He did shows at Jilly's.
Okay.
Did shows at Sam's.
Yeah, Sam's has come up as well.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where I met Mick.
Okay.
Okay.
Mick Montgomery.
So, yes. So it's kind of, there's one story I'm always telling is that Mick and I are sitting at Sam's, and it's like the school teacher and the engineer. I'm the engineer.
Okay.
And
he was really a teacher, right?
yeah,
he was an art teacher.
He was a school teacher in West Carrollton,
That's right.
I believe.
Yeah.
And I was engineer working at the base.
Okay.
I got a degree, engineering degree from Wright State.
Okay.
And then worked a couple other jobs around Dayton, but then I wound up at the base. But anyway, in those days, like I said, we were just people who appreciated music, who went to shows.
Yeah.
And so the school teacher and the engineer sitting at a table at Sam's having a beer and saying, man, nobody's bringing bands to Dayton that I want to see.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so he started, actually that's where he started out. He started doing shows at Sam's.
Yep.
And I was that was kind of where I did a little door for Jim Carter shows.
Okay.
But I also, as an engineer, I was helping the sound man at Sam's build a passive crossover network so that they could get a little better sound out of what they had in there. And I remember the day, it was probably 1981, when Mick was in there, and they started Sam's, where Mick was going to do like folk-oriented material or folk-oriented acts, and then Jim was doing kind of punk rock or new wave stuff. And anyway, the ownership at Sam's was leaning more towards the new wave stuff.
Sure. That was
and
what was popping.
Mick was kind of getting muscled out.
Yeah.
And that was when he departed to go, and found Canal Street. But I distinctly remember I'm over there working on the PA one day, and they're in there and they're arguing. And Mick goes, I'm out of here. I'm done with this place. And so Mick is walking out, and I go over to him and I go, Mick, don't leave. No, you can't go. This is just, you can work this out.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm out of here. I got to get my own place. And so that's sort of the genesis of Canal Street.
Amazing.
So,
Wow.
but Jim went on to do shows after Sam's. He did some stuff at Jilly's.
Okay.
A couple more things at Brickwood Hall, and then I'd say by about 84, he was burnt out and he was done.
Okay.
And another friend of ours, Chuck King. I don't know if you've heard that name.
No.
Yeah,
Does that come up?
Don brought him up.
Chuck was the one who found the Building Lounge.
Yep.
And basically, I think it's 85, Chuck walked in the door at the Building Lounge and said, hey, talked to the guy, the owner, his name was Butch Stone. And he said, hey, can I do some bands in here? And he said, yeah, sure. If it'll sell beer, what the hell? So, and that's Chuck did the Building Lounge for probably just a few months, and I was his doorman.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And then Chuck and Bob Kramer, who owns Soundforce on Wayne Avenue.
Yeah. Okay.
Him and Bob moved to San Francisco, 86, 87, something like that. And I see, like I said, it's all kind of foggy.
I mean, we are talking 40 years ago, so whatever.
Yeah,
It's fine.
And so when Chuck moved to San Francisco, that was my first stab at promoting.
Okay.
I took over the Building Lounge for a couple months.
Okay.
And so was not doing very well. It was like nobody was coming out. It was just, exercise in futility.
Yeah.
And so one day I'm walking out the door, and there were apartments above the Building Lounge.
Where was the Building Lounge located?
It's out on, it's like the 2931, I think it is, East 3rd Street.
Okay.
And up above there are apartments. There are a bunch of punk rock kids living up there.
Uh-huh.
And including, I don't know if you heard these names, Gary Thompson.
Yep. I've heard of Gary Thompson.
And Rita, God, what's her last name? But Gary and Rita were a couple.
Okay.
So one day I'm walking out the door and lock the door, and Gary Thompson just starts hurling insults down at me. He's like, whatever, like 18-year-old punk rock kid, and I'm, what was I in 86? I was 20, or was I 32? Let's see, I was 54. Yeah, I was 32.
Wow.
I was 32 at that point. And he's hurling insults down, telling me I don't know what I'm doing, and you're a terrible promoter. You don't know what you're doing. And
Like, dude, I just got started. Like,
Right.
cut me some slack.
Yeah, a couple months I've been doing this, and I was fed up, and he's hurling insults down, and I just look up at him, and I just toss the key up to him, And I say, you think you can do better? It's yours.
Wow.
And so then him and Rita did shows there for probably a couple years.
Are you serious?
And that was the heyday of the Building Lounge.
Yeah, Jamie was
Gary
talking
and Rita.
about doing
So
shows.
Yes.
that's how they got their start. Is him, like I said, hurling insults and me
Wow.
saying, "Fuck this,
Yeah.
take it." So at that point in time, let's see, what else was I doing? I was I took a job as chief broadcast engineer out at WYSO.
Oh, wow.
I rebuilt a couple studios out there. That was in the infamous Johnny Vernile era.
Don't know
That
that.
was he got rid of a lot of people.
Okay.
He came in there. He wanted to turn it into some sort of slick corporate operation, and it there was a lot of pushback. It didn't happen. Jim Carter was one of the very few people who survived that.
Really?
Because he's
That
got a long,
purge,
Yeah,
so
he's
to
been-
speak.
long-standing relationship.
And I had a radio show out there overnight, the midnight to 5 in the morning shift,
Sheesh.
and gave us freedom to play a lot of radical stuff. I would get in there, and I have these kids from the dorms at Ohio State would call me, and they would say, "Hey, the signal's not very strong. It's kind of staticky. We really can't hear what's going on." And I said, "Hang on a minute." And I'd go over and I'd bump the transmitter up. And I'd say, "Let's take it up to about 115%."
Oh, my gosh.
And so, which is not particularly legal.
Right.
And so then we would broadcast at an elevated signal level throughout the night. And then at 5 in the morning, there's a radio station in Athens.
Okay.
The same frequency, 91.3. It kicks on, and then they play like bluegrass.
Okay.
And so then, usually around 5 in the morning, I'd get a phone call from them saying, "Hey, you're stepping on our signal. You need to back off a little.
Dial
Oh,
back a
geez.
little bit.
Dial it back some." Or we'd get a phone call from some farmer out in Chillicothe saying, "Hey, you're stepping all over my bluegrass. Turn it down."
Oh, my
Punk
God.
rock off.
So turn the punk rock down.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
So what were you playing on that radio show? Like what type of stuff were you?
Oh, I don't know. Hardcore. A lot of,
Hardcore.
like I don't know, Agnostic Front and
Okay.
Dead Kennedys and
Black
I
Flag.
don't know, Black Flag. You got it.
Yeah.
And Butthole Surfers,
Yeah.
that was sort of my favorite at the time.
So how did you move back a minute to like earlier on? So was your family really into music? How did you get turned on to music? And
How'd you catch
Punk
this
rock.
illness that we all
yeah,
have?
That's interesting. My parents, I don't know. I think they bought, like they had like, we went and saw the Dylan movie, the Complete Unknown, and reminded me of like the albums that my parents were listening to in the early 60s when I was like, I was 7, 8, 9 years old. There was like Bob Dylan and Joan Baez.
Yep.
But my parents mostly listened to classical, I think. We would like the Texaco Star Opera.
Yeah.
Every Sunday. We'd go out for drives wherever it was we lived. We lived in Idaho. We lived in Alabama. We lived all over the place as an Air Force family.
Yep.
But that was a constant. Sunday mornings we'd listen, or Sunday afternoons, I guess it was. We'd listen to the opera. But at any rate,
What a crazy time to think about,
Yeah.
in that your family time would be spent around a radio listening to music, whether it's opera or anything else.
yeah, right, exactly.
It's just so wild to think about now.
But we lived in Boston from 1965 to 1970.
Okay.
And when I was 10, like between the ages of 10 and 15 for me, my mom, from her days at Rice University, one of her close friends was a DJ down. He was a DJ in Boston.
Okay.
On one of the rock stations in Boston, and he would, I think he was think he was trying to move in on her, but the but my mom was this like prim and proper Air Force wife.
Yeah.
And but this guy would like give her tickets to shows.
Okay.
And so, and mom, my dad, of course, this is 1969, 1970. So my dad, he really couldn't go to a show,
Right.
a rock and roll show with a bunch of hippies. He was an officer in the Air Force. Yeah. And my mom, it was just borderline acceptable. But the first couple shows I ever went to were I saw Led Zeppelin at the Boston Gardens, and I saw The Who at the Boston Gardens. So
couple up and coming bands.
Yeah. So that kind of piqued my interest. The first taste of promoting, I was what was I? I was like 13, and at the base we lived at Hanscom Air Force Base, or Hanscom Field it was called then, and we were building a youth activity center.
Okay.
And so we would always run, the Boy Scouts and the different youth organizations at the base, we would always run a concession stand at the air show every year.
Okay.
And so we raised quite a bit of money that way. But anyway, they said, okay, we want to, what do you kids want to do? And said, well, we want to do a rock concert.
We want to rock. That's what we want to do.
We want to do a rock concert. Yeah. And so it was really cool because the base, they said, okay, we'll give you use of a hangar.
Oh,
wow.
We will provide, because to get from the gate to the hangar, there has to be like a cordon of security, for all these civilians coming onto the base. And I mean,
you can't, if you just think about anybody who's from Dayton, if you go to the wrong entrance at Wright Pat, you're not getting in. So to throw a show for kids on base, that's just...
Right. In 1970, like when, I remember going to Red Sox games and we'd be on Big Blue Air Force bus, Big Blue bus with U.S. Air Force.
Yeah.
In yellow letters on the side, and we would be driving through Harvard Square. And I mean... we'd be attacked.
Oh, geez.
Big crowds of hippies would be attacking the bus and throwing things at us. And so it was in those Vietnam days, it was
pretty wild.
That was kind of crazy.
Be on that side. So 13, you're at the
we booked the Grassroots.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Wow.
So anyway, so we called someone, got a hold of a booking agent in Boston. And he goes,
"Wait,
well,
you're 13 and you're doing this?
Yeah, who do you want to book?" And it was me and it was our youth organization.
Yeah.
Still.
And he goes, "Well, who would you like to come out and play?" And I said, "Well, there's this band Led Zeppelin." And he goes, "Well, how much money do you have?" And so, we got a couple $1,000, which is a lot of money in 1970.
Oh, yeah.
And they were 50,000.
Oh, geez.
He
Even
said,
back
"Well,
then.
no, you can't afford Led Zeppelin. Sorry." And anyway, so we didn't get them, but we got the Grassroots.
Pretty good get.
Yeah. So, and they played at the hangar. And we had a couple local bands. Actually, I was in a band.
Oh, okay. What did you play?
I was in that band. I was a keyboardist.
Oh, okay.
But I was a guitarist until the mid '70s. Okay. So, I mean, I dabbled. I was never really any good.
Yeah.
I'm one of those guys, I can't play unless I'm looking at my hands. If I look away, then I get lost. So I was never a really very good guitarist, but I've got some good guitars.
Yeah.
So, but that never helped.
Yeah. Me either. Didn't help me.
So once you toss the keys up at the building lounge and said, "You do it," what happens next? Because obviously,
at that point, like I said, I became the chief broadcast engineer at WYSO. Worked out there for a few years, and then that was actually I went through the '80s. Then I went to Wright State, got my master's, and then I started at General Motors.
Oh wow!
in 1988. I was 34, and I said, I'm going to find the biggest company with the best retirement plan.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm going to finish out.
Yeah.
And so I wound up at the GM plant, the Delco plant over on Woodman. And I was when I worked at the base through the 80s, I worked at a place. I worked at the Survivability Research Facility. It was a gun range.
Okay.
And what we did was we would mount sections of an aircraft, like up in a wind tunnel, and it was a wind tunnel facility. We'd mount wing or fuselage up in the wind tunnel, and we'd shoot it with a Russian anti-aircraft gun.
Oh, geez.
And so what we did is we developed fire retardant systems, and then we also developed battle damage repair techniques.
Oh, wow.
So that's what that lab did. And then I went from there. When I went to General Motors, I was the design engineer for power door lock systems.
Oh, wow.
So that's a wide ranging.
Yeah, no
That
kidding.
is
What a weird mashup to go from Air Force, military,
Right, to automotive,
and punk rock somewhere in there.
Yeah, and doing that all in the meanwhile. So I was always, like I said, I was always working. But it was like I told you about the conversation with Mick.
Yeah.
We realized that we were going to have to bring things to Dayton ourselves. That the bars or the clubs in Dayton, they just weren't going to be doing it. And so we would always say, well, you're pretty good at throwing a party. Doing a show isn't a whole lot different than throwing a party, is it?
I mean,
And so that's how it all kind of came about. But again, having worked with Jim Carter, and and just the kind all going to shows, going to shows, and then when people would stop, you would realize, oh my God, nobody's going to be bringing this stuff here anymore. I have to do it myself.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a recurring theme.
Okay.
Through I'd say through the at least through the 80s.
Yeah. And it sounds like into the 90s as well.
By that time by 88, like I said, that was when I got my job at GM, and then I rented my first warehouse space at Front Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I was at Front Street starting in 88, 88, 89, 90, or 88, 89 mostly. And we were on the third floor of the main building there and did quite a few shows. That was where I really got started.
Okay.
So what?
But it was we shared a I was doing shows, but it was also Hunting Souls practice space.
Yeah.
Okay.
So me and Jamie, it was a collaborative effort between he and I. And what they would do is we would do one show a month with Hunting Souls, and that's basically how we paid the rent.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So
Listeners will know Haunting Souls from Jamie Holiday in the episodes as we have this conversation. They're releasing right now, but man, he was so much fun to talk with and hear his stories. And again, your name comes up. I'm fairly certain.
And he was talking about that during that time. He's like, $5, you're in the show, and you get to see these bands. And he's like, it was $5. He's like, you couldn't beat it. And everyone would come out to the shows, of all walks of life.
yeah, and then of course the punk rock kids give you a whole bunch of crap about the $5 part.
So I have a question
Shawn.
about. So you have a real job, right? You're working at GM, and you're like, I guess I want to know, like, what is that drive behind? I mean, you're working full time, but then you're also wanting to do these punk rock shows at Front Street. Like, are you thinking
It's
I
just
have
like
to
this-
do this?
Yeah,
I just have.
nobody
now, why do you have
else
to do
is doing it.
Okay, and so
Well, it's like I don't want to drive to Cincinnati every weekend, or Columbus, whatever, So
it's like it's in you. It's like I have to
throwing parties too.
Yeah.
I'd always been someone who would throw a party every now and then. So it just dovetails.
So the question I had kind of comes off of that. Do you think the clubs and the people who were around at that time just didn't have the vision for something beyond what was happening in the scene at that time and bringing touring bands? I mean, what
You know, back then, as late as 90, 92, you know, I mean, the only thing you could get in a bar in Dayton was like a Jimmy Buffett cover band or, you know, Leonard Skinner cover band or, you know, just that was it. That was the only thing they would chance.
Yeah.
And so it was difficult. It was difficult. We were doing, you know, Mick came around.
Yeah.
Mick came around after the we took the Method in there,
Okay.
and they won the band playoffs. And then the next year, Brainiac. And after that, you know, just the doors were kicked open to Canal Street.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
for sure.
he, you know, but there was a time when he, you know, wasn't all that receptive to it.
Okay.
To the harder edged things.
Yeah.
But after I got kicked out of Front Street,
Why'd you get kicked out?
Mick gave pardon?
Why'd you get kicked out?
Yeah, what happened there?
My brother-in-law was living there. You know, so like Hunting Souls was practicing there. I was doing a show every, say, Friday. And then James was living there, James Eric. Hey, James, if you're out there. And actually, James is now he's the director of Riverscape.
Oh, really?
So, but he was, back then, he was just an obnoxious punk rock kid. And I don't know what he was doing. I think he was shooting out taillights of cars from the window of the space.
Oh, my gosh.
Or something punk like that, and we got kicked out. So that's where the whole idea of New Space came from.
Okay.
Because there was always a new space. We were, you know, at that point we were roving, going from, like I said, warehouse spaces to rental halls to, you know, people's basements to, you know, whatever, just anywhere and anywhere you could do. You could set a band up. We would do it.
You were talking earlier before we really started rolling that you would get contacted and these bands are coming through, and you give them a date, and you didn't know where you're going to put them yet.
Right, exactly. They would, you know, like that's like with Green Day. I mean, that's how.
Now we're getting into it. Let's go.
They saw.
What year was Green Day? What year? Do you
It was
remember?
probably 90.
Oh, okay.
I'm guessing. Probably we did them. We did Green Day like 5 times.
5 times in Dayton?
Wow.
And that was before they ever signed a major label deal.
Jeezy Pete's.
That was at any rate.
Did they draw well?
It was nothing drew well. I mean, you know, 200 for a show would have been like we'd have been
lose your mind.
Yeah.
we'd have just, you know, most show. You know, have I ever told you about there? I've got this thing. This is called the Ken Gross Rule of 40.
Let's go. Let's hear it.
And it's this is Dayton.
Okay.
Okay, you got 4 bands.
Yep.
That's 16 people.
Yeah.
Okay, you got 16 girlfriends. Now you're up to 32.
Okay.
You got a bartender, a doorman, and a sound man, and a security man. Now you're at 36, and you got 5 paid. Now you're at 40.
Geez. Oh,
That's
my gosh.
the rule of 40. That's Dayton.
So you were
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just got to sit on that for a second because
That is
all
awesome.
of us have played shows where the only other people standing there
Girlfriends.
or the other band that's playing that night along
played-
with staff.
when we played Midpoint, we played to the other band that was playing, and that was like 3 of our friends.
You're not playing rock and roll unless you play and it's only the other band watching.
So you,
Well, when I owned the Sub Galley, there were plenty of shows where it would be just the people who worked there. You know, me and like the dozen staffers, you know, pizza delivery drivers and people,
Right.
you know, in the kitchen, and you know, we'd all be out. We'd be the ones out there watching the band.
oh man,
And
When
then,
did you
and then
buy
of course
this?
the openers. You know,
Right,
you have a couple local openers, so that would be, you know, kind of rule of 40.
Let's go chronological then. So, I mean, you started the Building Lounge, you let that go, a little bit of time passes. New Space is the next thing?
Right.
Front Street.
Right.
Well, Front Street.
Yeah.
Yeah,
New
that's the first New Space.
Okay.
Is Front Street.
Okay.
And then we did. I did every Wednesday night at Canal Street
Okay.
Oh, cool. I didn't know.
for I don't know. I think maybe that was the summer of '90, and that, where Mick and I kind of came back together. There was a show we did with Dennis Schlichter, and it was kind of a multimedia presentation, and we had like Fog Machine, and Dennis set up some like 8mm film, and it was basically like porn playing backwards or something like that. And anyway,
I think Kazernis was talking about that. Do you remember?
That's come
and
up
then
somehow.
Mick came in, and that was the end of it. He walked in, and we were kicked out of there too.
Oh, my gosh.
But another place like at Lily's now. Back then it was I forget it was at the German German restaurant that it was. Go down to the basement of if you go down in the basement of Lily's, they've got the girl. There's like the German
The beer.
waitress
Were you putting
with
shows
holding
on?
beer steins.
Were you putting shows down in the
At
basement?
PJ's Down Under, I did one weekend.
I was at that show.
I did. I think we did Denny Wilson on Friday night, and then we did the Slaughterhouse, the infamous Slaughterhouse show,
That
which
had to
was
be it.
Jeremy Frederick's band,
Yep.
Sunken Giraffe, I think it was, and Hunting Souls, and the band from Detroit called Slaughterhouse.
In my mind, I'm like, I know I went to a show in a basement in the Oregon district, and that was it. That was a show. I don't know why I was there. Probably Hunting Souls.
You're right, probably.
Yeah.
But that was
Oh
in
my gosh.
in '90.
You did one show down there?
Yeah, well, did Friday night and Saturday night, and then that was actually a Sunday matinee.
Okay.
That show, all ages matinee.
Wow.
And after that, we were kicked out of there. But this
I'm
band,
sensing a theme here.
this band Slaughterhouse,
Slaughtered.
guy, he would, he had this thing he would do. He would like eat white bread, and then at the end of the set, he would throw up.
Oh my gosh.
But he did this thing at the beginning of his set. He put this stuff in his hair, and he would come up with the microphone, and he'd have a cigarette lighter, and he would go, and his hair would go.
Oh man.
And anyway, they had like TVs all around playing porn, and it was like, I can't remember, but it was like 4 bass players and 2 saxophone players.
Oh, my gosh.
And the one saxophone player was this girl, was an amputee, and she had like just this stump for a leg. And the other girl was a bass player, and she'd lay on the floor playing her bass, and the girl would fuck her with her stump.
Oh my gosh. I don't remember any of that.
And along with the guy setting his hair on fire.
Definitely gonna have to put it explicit on this one, kids.
Anyway, so it would be like,
Jeez. And you got kicked out?
Strange.
do you imagine?
How did that
Weird. Oh gosh.
Anyway,
How
but
did you find that band?
it's just somebody who wrote us on back of Maximum Rock and Roll.
Wow.
There was a section. They would do scene reports, and you would send in a scene report.
Oh, interesting.
And so you could read up what was going on in every city.
Yeah.
And they also, in the back, they had a thing called Book Your Own Fucking Life.
Wow.
And bands then would go there, and there was just basically lists of phone numbers in cities.
Wow. Huh.
So that was how, like Green Day and all, NoFX, all kinds of people, found us that way.
Wow. I mean, that was the.
But
thing.
they would string, so they would just call all these people,
yeah.
and they would string together a tour.
Yeah. Well, I wondered that because Green Day's from California, I believe. So getting from California to Dayton,
they were kind of the house band at Gilman Street.
Okay.
And in '88, we went out there, and we met a lot of people out there. My wife and I, and so that I sort of a lot of the bands we brought through were Lookout Records and associated with Maximum Rock and Roll and with Gilman Street and that was, my wife, again, like I said, my family's from California.
Yeah.
So I'm out there a few times a year.
Okay.
Every most of my life, and I mean even now.
Yeah.
So we would, we had a lot of connections. A lot of the bands, a lot of times it would be, oh gosh, you'd see somebody at Gilman Street, and after the show, you'd walk up and talk to them and say, "Hey, I'm from Dayton, Ohio. If you ever come that way,
hit me up.
Here's my number."
Yeah.
And so it worked out like that a lot too.
Amazing. Well, and it's probably the case that back then, once you get a number and have a good experience and a good show in a city, like you said, you had Green Day 5 times probably.
Sure.
Once they have one good experience, they're booking another tour. They're going to come back.
Sure.
So,
well, one of my favorite Green Day stories is
Please.
they're going. It's sound check. We're blazing, and they're like, they're talking about Humboldt. And, it's like, what's Humboldt? And he said, it's like a growing region north of San Francisco. And, says it's like, just the best weed in the world comes from there. Next time we come through, we'll bring you some. And so, so they started out, they had, a bag of weed. And then as the tour goes on, it's just like they keep dipping into it, because they're not, crossing paths with any as they're coming across the country. Finally, they get to Dayton, and they've got like this little bud like that. That's all that's left of it.
those of you listening, he's holding up fingers and not showing a whole lot of anything. So.
like your little fingernail.
There you go.
Anyway, so it's like, so we, they go, come on, out to the van, out to the van. They pack a bowl, with this one little bud that they saved this little bud all the way across the country for me. And anyway, that was
it good?
I
Sure.
You got
I don't
ask.
remember.
Okay.
I think it was, it was like, okay, that's wonderful.
So
Thank you.
let's stick with them for just a second because you're there. I mean, as we have talked to people, they rattled off a bunch of different bands that you promoted and brought to town, and I didn't know that you'd brought them multiple times. Did you book them at the same place every time when they came through? Different times?
It was always somewhere different. It was
every single time there was at a different place. That's
right. I think the first time was at the warehouse on Front Street, and then I believe, trying to think, we had the warehouse on Springfield Street.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And Brookwood Hall,
Yeah.
Someone's basement, it just that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's
And it was like, it was always like, like I said, rule of 40.
Yeah.
Most of the time, until the last couple times, when they decided to sign their major label deal,
yeah.
they had to drive to New York.
Okay.
And they had like an old bookmobile that they somehow got along the way, and one of their dads drove it.
These guys, the more you talk about them, the less punk rock they sound.
And so
Driving across from Humboldt County in their bookmobile. Like,
Right.
What?
and so they wanted to play. They had 2 shows they wanted on, if you want to call it a tour. There were 2 places they wanted to play before they signed their major label deal, and that was Dayton.
Oh my!
Wow.
And ABC, the place in New York, ABC No Rio. Those are the 2 places they wanted to play before they went in and signed their major label deal.
Gosh.
And so that we were honored.
Yeah.
But at that show, there was it was at Brookwood Hall. I think there were about 400 people.
It's a big show.
Yeah.
That was finally. And there was it was all people jumping on stage, and it was just chaotic. And Harold Patrick was like keeping Billy Joe's mic up,
Okay.
holding on to Billy Joe's mic stand. Anyway, the crowd pulls him back, and then he loses grip of the microphone stand, and the mic stand goes back in, and hits Billy Joe in the mouth and knocks off a hunk of his tooth. Oh, God. And that tooth, that was for years, that was Billy Joe's punk rock cred.
Wow.
He, hey, little sis in the pit, and anyway, but that happened in Dayton.
So
Then, of course, now they got all new teeth, but
they can afford whatever they want.
that was one of the first things they did.
Okay.
But so it was kind of interesting because they go from, they played Dayton, and then they immediately, the label put them out on the road immediately, and then they were playing like Bogart-sized venues.
Next level up.
And then they were on Lollapalooza.
Yeah.
And then they did the Woodstock.
Yep, 94.
So anyway, I'm sitting backstage at Bogart's with Trey, and he's got a laptop.
Yeah.
This is 1992.
I was going to ask you a time frame on this.
92, 94. He's got a laptop, and he's showing me their schedule.
Yeah.
And he's going, okay, here we are, Dayton.
Yeah.
$400. Here we are, Bogart's, $4,000.
Wow.
Here we are, Lollapalooza, $40,000. Here we are, Woodstock, $400,000. All in the span of a summer.
That is insane.
That's
Wow.
So
obviously, with you bringing them to town multiple times, you established a bit of a rapport with them, which is why you ended up backstage at Bogart's, I assume.
right. Well, actually, what happened is that was what they did. They signed the contract. They went on the road, and me and Paulie went down there and we're banging on the backstage door, and then said, "Go get the band. We know them."
Yeah.
And so they let us in, but it wasn't
it's amazing.
It wasn't like we were on the guest list or anything.
And this is
then just a couple of years later, I couldn't even, I contacted their management.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, they're playing here Arena, is there, I just want to say hi.
right.
And we couldn't get through to them.
Oh, geez.
It was just like, that's how fast.
Rocket ship.
You go from getting Christmas cards from them to, they don't even remember who you are.
Wow.
Meet Me in the City, sponsored by Twisted River Coffee Roaster. Twisted River offers an unpretentious approach to specialty coffee. Visit twistedrivercoffee.com and use promo code INTHECITY at checkout to receive a one-time discount of 10% off your entire order.
This episode of Meet Me in the City has been recorded at Yellow Cab Tavern, located right outside of Dayton's Oregon District. Yellow Cab Tavern is one of Dayton's premier gathering places, showcasing live music performances from local artists, food truck rallies, art shows, and so much more. Stop by for a beer and food. They have great pizza and brunch on the weekends. They also have a rotating selection of beers on tap. They're located at 700 East 4th Street. We hope that you will stop by and support them as they have supported us on this journey.
There's another story like from back when I was 16. I became friends with Joe Walsh.
Oh, geez.
How did that?
And well,
Proceed to the level which you would like to share. What we tell people is we're not looking for gotcha moments, but if you got a story you want to tell.
Well, when I was 16, we moved here. We moved here from Boston.
Yep.
Summer of 70.
Okay.
And it's between my sophomore and junior year in high school.
Okay.
And I'm, reading the paper, and I see, oh my God, the James Gang, they're playing over at Forest Park, at the She or whatever it was
Yes,
called. That
that's
Pavlovsky.
come up.
She has come up multiple times.
Forest Park, whatever club.
Yep.
And so I rode my bike from Huber Heights down to Forest Park. And I said, the band's going to show up and load in. And, so it's like August, hot summer day, 1970. And the band rolled up, and I said, hey, you guys need any help loading in? And so after that, whenever they would, like, for the rest of that summer, and even into 71, this is 1970, whenever they played, they were playing all over Ohio. I mean, here they had James Gang Rides Again, which was, that's how I knew who they were, because I bought their album when I lived in Boston.
Yeah.
And so, I came down here and I said, oh my God, I can't believe they're playing, this club right here. And, but that was the way things were then, is the bands they were still small. They were still playing, bars in Lancaster and Athens and Marietta and whatever, because they're from Kent.
Right. Yeah.
And they're still playing around. So we kind of all through late 70 and 71, me and a couple of my friends, we would kind of follow them. Got it. And we'd say, well, next week we're going to be in Columbus, and so, we anyway, so I kind of stayed friends with Joe and the band, helped 72. I helped Joe move to Boulder, Colorado with his wife and young child. And I moved to Boulder and worked in a restaurant there, and ended up getting a job worked at Caribou Ranch, and was a roadie for several bands, Jesse Cullen Young and the Doobie Brothers, and and for Barnstorm and for Joe, I was sort of, a guitar tech for him. So, but anyway, so here's the story.
Just a little aside.
This is like, you just pulled us out of nowhere.
Yeah. Oh, well, I kind of knew Joe Walsh.
He goes, well, I'm gonna join the Eagles. And
I've heard of them.
There's all this trauma that leads up to that, and drug abuse, and his daughter was killed in a car crash.
Oh, geez,
didn't know that. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's when he kind of spiraled off into, and that's when the Eagles then kind of said, we're going to grab this guy because he's like spiraling down. And so anyway, they invited him to join the Eagles, and I go, wow, this is great. We get to move to L.A. And he goes, no, you're not going. He goes, you are going back to Dayton and get that college degree you've always talked about.
Oh, geez.
This is 74. So then I came back and went to Wright State. But anyway, so I had this earlier brush with sort of fame and fortune, in the very early 70s. Yeah. When I was, 18, 19, 20. And so anyway, here's the story. So we have our next...
That's not the story already?
In L.A., so this is like about, 6 years ago. We're at where my family's from in L.A. is a neighborhood called Delray.
Okay.
And there's a Playa del Rey. Anyway, so there's our next door neighbor there is our family home in Delray. Our next door neighbor there is Jim Buss, who's one of the owners of the Lakers.
Oh yeah, Jeannie Buss's.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, every year Jim Buss has a big Oscars party. Like that's the big thing this time of year. Yeah. Everybody has Oscars parties. So we're at the Oscars party at Jim Buss, because he's our next door neighbor, and he drives a taco truck into his backyard.
What is going on right now?
He drives a taco truck into his backyard and has this big party. So we're at the party, and there's Joe. And so
Joe
it's
Walsh.
50 years later, right?
Yeah.
And so say to one of my friends, hey, I don't want to just walk up to him, introduce us.
Right.
So, and I got introduced to Joe, and I'm going, do you remember 1972, Joe? Said, I slept on your couch for 3 months, and he goes, no, doesn't ring any bells.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So when you're in that kind of position, you have so many people
Yeah.
parading fast past your face constantly. And then you have drug abuse and other things to wipe out, years of memory.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. It's just like they don't remember.
Yeah.
Which is it's okay.
Sure.
It's okay. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
But
It's a cool story for you to have.
I've got a few other weird ones like that. But
Let's go back to the Dayton promoting thing. We'll stick with Green Day for just a second. So first couple times they come through, I know your Rule of 40 I got down, which I think is just
great.
golden.
Genius.
That's right up there with Pac-Man on a guitar.
Yeah, Jamie Holiday talking about hitting every fret on the guitar and the solos. It's great. When a band like that comes through town, I mean, I think did you typically put a local band on or a couple local bands with them, or how did the show fill out when you had someone coming from Detroit or from California or wherever?
that's we had like 4 or 5 locals that were basically our headliners.
Okay.
And then a lot of times, I mean, sometimes the local would be the last band to play.
Sure.
Because if they weren't, everybody would leave.
Yeah, you want the draw.
You'd have your 3 locals that play.
Yep.
And then you'd bring out your national touring act, and everybody be on their way to whatever party, And so, that happened a lot where the place would just clear out, and then you'd have somebody like Green Day going on, and there'd be nobody there to watch them.
Wow.
But my favorite thing, I think my favorite thing about all that was we would. The band, the headliner, the national touring act is so many degrees better than everything anybody has seen so far that night.
Except they haven't been heard by the people who are in the room, right?
And so here you have your local headliner, and they're putting their jackets on, and the headliner's getting ready to go on, and a lot of times the only people left in the room might even be the opening acts.
Yeah.
And I always loved it when the headliner would hit the stage, and you just watch the faces of the local bands, and their mouths would just drop open like, oh my God, we have so far to go.
Yeah.
And the only reason I tell that story is because Tim Taylor always used to come to me afterwards and say, thank you so much for bringing these people to Dayton.
Yeah.
Because, we are all, we have our own little scene here.
For sure.
And, and our own local rock stars.
Yep.
And he said, we need to be put in our place. We need to be shown the reality of the outside world.
What can be.
And they were very, very, very appreciative, and and they understood the importance of gig swapping with with out of town bands, and being Brainiac being able to go on stage in Chicago as the guest of whoever. And they understood. Not too many of the local bands really got it, but we did our best, to create bills, like Nick's bands, and Nick was always, like Cage. We always, but it was because if we didn't, there would be nobody there.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask too: was there a handful of bands at that time when you're promoting that would be your kind of go-to local bands? You'd say, "Oh, hey, we have Green Day coming through. We definitely want to put,
Hunting Souls, Method,
okay,
Jeremy Frederick's band, like Cigar Head,
okay,
again Nick's band, Cage.
yeah,
I always had a rotation." There was always 4 or 5 that,
Okay.
that would basically be your local headliners,
Okay.
and then we would just toss an out of town band or 2 on.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, to kind of flesh the bill out.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's kind of the classic way you put a show together. You know, you have your local headliner that is going to draw and has friends in town that are going to come out and see them, and hopefully they're going to be there early enough to see the touring band come through
Sure.
and support them as well. The crazy thing is, you just happened to book a bunch of bands who went on to be huge,
Sure.
huge. I mean, Green Day.
everybody starts out somewhere.
Yes, absolutely.
But you know what? To the local band's credit, because I would tell them, I would say, look, you're bringing all the people in, and
right.
the out of town band's getting all the money.
Yeah, because you have to pay
So
them. They're on tour.
but you get resume fodder.
Yes.
We played with X. We played with that kind of thing. So it was a trade off. I said, look, and people always say, well, what is your role in all of this? And that's again there's no point in doing a show. I believe that even to this day, there's no point in doing a show unless there's an out of town band on the bill. Because if you're a local band, I mean, there's 20 places you can go and get somebody to put you on the stage.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's
I mean, if you're out there trying to do it and play
but
music, hone your craft.
I saw that as my role.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to just do a show with a bunch of local bands. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so
Well, but that's a help for them too, because we've talked about several times in the way that, and I wasn't familiar with the magazine you talked about where people would find promoters in local cities, but the way that you got on and got shows at other cities was doing that very thing.
Sure.
You have to exchange information because there was no email, there was no texting, there was no, social media platforms. It was get to know people.
yeah, I mean, U.S. mail and with a cassette.
Yeah.
Or a phone. At least we had telephones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Jamie was talking about.
We
He was
got to stretch the string though.
That's right.
right. He was talking about you become that guy, and you're like, you got to call this guy in Dayton. He'll help you find a show, and then you keep trading and stuff.
Right, sure. And, gig swapping was a big thing
Oh
back
yeah,
then.
big time. Before we really got started rolling, you said you remember the first time that someone had a rider and a guarantee. Who was that?
No, that was Chumbawamba.
Chumbawamba.
So were they
yeah.
punk at one time or something, or because they had that big song?
Tub thumping,
Tub
right?
thumping.
Yeah.
I get knocked down.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get knocked down. I get up
Yeah.
again.
Okay.
I ain't never gonna-
Is that what the name of the song is?
I'm pretty sure.
I
I don't think
thought
Tub
that was the
Thumping.
album, maybe.
Yeah, no, that's the name of the song.
Oh,
too.
okay.
I'm not
I mean,
sure
it could
that
be the
that.
album
go.
as well.
I don't know that shows up in the song at all.
No,
Yeah.
the only reason I know this is Christina and I were doing a music trivia last night, and that song came up, and that's
Okay.
what it was.
All right.
But but they put them on as a one-hit wonder. That was their one hit. So,
I mean, for most people, that's probably true.
Yeah, it kind of is true.
yeah.
Yeah.
I went to where was it? Somewhere in England. They're from like Bristol or
Yeah, they're from England, I think.
yeah. And at any rate, I remember going to my wife. My ex-wife is a mathematician, works at the base, and she goes to the University of Leeds. Is like the math kind of math powerhouse of the world.
Okay.
That is, if you had the top 100 mathematicians from the planet in one room, like half of them would be from Leeds.
Jeez.
It's crazy.
Wow.
But we would go there, and we go there every summer for a math convention for my wife. And I would just wander down into town, say, wonder where are they doing? This is while I was doing shows, during my show career. And, go down and, you'd find some club where Brainiac had played, and they would be all excited. My favorite, that's one of my thing about Leeds, is I'm walking across the campus, drop my wife off at her convention or at her meeting, and I'm walking across the lawn, and I'm going, walk up to just a random person. I go, hey, where's this building, where the Who played live at Leeds? And they go, oh, here, let me show you, you know? And so we're walking across the grass and walking across the lawn, and I'm talking with this guy, and, you know, this is like some guy. He goes, oh, I was a student then. You know, he's a professor now.
Oh, cool.
And walking across, and then somebody else walks up and goes, hey, you know, where are you going, you know? And says, oh, I'm taking him up to show him the building, you know? And, of course, now it's an auditorium, and they went in, and they turned it into 3 floors of classrooms.
Oh, geez.
It's no longer an auditorium. But there is the blue plaque.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see them all over England. And they got a blue plaque. This is where the Who played and recorded live at Leeds.
Oh,
So we're walking across, and more people are joining our little flock of people headed up to the building. All these people are peppering me with questions and back and forth. And, you know, by the time we get there, there's like 20 people. And it was just like, I thought it was so cool, you know, that everybody was just so, you know, neighborly and, you know, and welcoming. And they all had a story from that day.
Oh, man.
You know? So, of course, this was like 1995 or whatever.
Gotcha.
You know, so it was a little bit more recent memory for them. You know, only 25 years in the past as opposed to 50. But there were a lot of people that,
That's
you know,
cool.
I was shocked how many people, you know, it's, oh, yeah, I was at that show, you know. So, anyway.
Is that how you met Chumbawamba?
No, well, whenever my wife went to this math convention in Leeds for 3 or 4 years, we went there every summer, and so then we would like find the people, you know, I would look up people who I'd booked, and we would go to their hometown and and visit them or go see them at a show, a local show. So, you know, a lot of the bands we brought from England, we went over and visited, or, you know, had lunch with or whatever. Man. So that was kind of fun.
Cool.
Yeah. So how did that Chumbawamba come about? They contacted you? Do you remember?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Who knows?
I
have no idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you remember where they played here in town?
I think that was Brookwood Hall.
Brookwood Hall. Okay.
Yeah, that was a Brookwood Hall show.
And obviously before their big hit and before they became a household-ish name.
Yeah, I think just before.
Yeah.
I think it was just before that. It was like 92 or 91 or something like that.
And you said they were the first band with like a real rider.
The first band that actually had a contract and a guarantee.
Wow.
Oh, geez.
So,
anything crazy from the rider that you remember?
No.
Okay. I mean, if you're just
nothing about brown M&Ms, nothing like
The
that.
best ounce of weed or something.
Yeah. We
Right.
got that on a rider for the Dayton Music Fest.
That's all we'll say.
Yeah.
That's all
there
we'll
you
say.
go.
That's all we'll say.
Brown M&Ms?
No.
No.
Best weed.
Oh, okay.
The finest local that you can get.
Yeah. And we're like, we can't give that to you, but I can tell you where to find it.
Sure.
We might know somebody.
We might know somebody.
Did you book Fugazi?
Yes.
You did book
That was Brookwood Hall, too,
Well,
right?
like 4 times.
Yeah.
4 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
See what?
So I think Electricians Hall was the first one.
Okay.
And then, let's see, did Brookwood a couple times maybe. And then 1470.
Oh, really?
That's the one that people remember. That
Right.
because what's funny is you're remembered as booking all these shows, and what someone will say to us or have said on the podcast is, "Oh yeah, you got to talk to Ken Gross. He booked Green Day." So I just assume, oh, we booked him once coming through town. No, actually, 5 times. Well, he also booked Fugazi. Oh, he booked Fugazi with the one show at 1470. No, you're telling us 4 or 5 times they came through before. Yeah. And again on those shows, probably Dayton bands as well that you would have put on with them.
Sure, always.
Yeah.
Right. Usually the Method or
Okay.
the Method got a lot. Method got a lot of the big bills. Method and Brainiac got most of them.
Especially in that mid-90s. That 1470 show, what was that, like 94, 95, somewhere around there? Was it that late even? It's out there on the internet somewhere, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Any memories from having them through town and what the crowd response was like as they're coming up?
Only thing I remember there's a good Ian Mackay story where they played a show I think it was someplace in Virginia he was talking about. And they, after the show, he's with the promoter. I guess so the promoter went in there and just some guy rented a hall and did a Fugazi show.
Okay.
And he said they're like they're in there counting money. And then like all these like union stagehand kind of people, like thugs, like came in and they said, hey, what's this? You did a show without us?
Oh, geez.
And he got it anyway. He said, "Yeah, we just did a show. We just set up and played, and we're all done. It's all over." And they go, "Well, where's our cut?"
Oh my gosh.
and he goes, "Well, there's no cut for you. Why do we need to pay you?" And he beat the crap out of him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's your cut.
Wow.
Anyway.
Wow.
You never had anything like that around here, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the union stagehands took care of business. So,
So what was your most memorable show bringing in? What really stands out to you?
oh my God, before we opened, before we got the sub galley,
What year was that? What year did you?
that was late '95. We were doing shows in the back room at 1470 throughout. Well, what happened was I had I got to go back even further. I had the guy who owned Brookwood Halls, named Leo Schroeder, and I had a deal with him where I was renting the place like 4 times a month.
Wow.
And I think I was renting it 4 times a month, and I was paying him for 3.
Okay.
Because it's like a package deal. Well, I went to New Mexico on vacation one summer, and I came back, and my hall was gone. The guy from Rebo's swept in and made Leo a better deal and took my hall away from me.
Oh, geez.
That was, 93 or something like that, 94. And so I didn't, that was 93. Because then we did the Palace Club
Ooh, where was the Palace Club?
at Beaver Creek.
Okay.
Which is now King's Table.
Oh, yeah.
It's at
Grange Hall. Yes.
And what happened was Dwayne Wheeler, he was the DJ for 1470.
Yeah. I remember.
And then him and Tom Utterback got into it, and he fired Dwayne. So Dwayne went all through the year 94. We did the Palace Club in Beaver Creek. And then after, of course, then business went down at 14, and Palace was just kicking ass. And then at the end of 94, Dwayne went back to 1470.
Okay.
But at that point in time, Tom Utterback was not ready to, was that early 95? Let's see what happened. Maybe that was when Tom gave us, there's like a little back room at 1470. We called it the Chameleon Club.
Yes. I saw a show there.
Yeah.
Shellac
Right.
and Brainiac opened up.
Right. And we did Unwound and some other people.
Nice. Unwound.
Well, we did a few shows there, and that was then about the middle of '95 is when Scott Bodine and Amy Meredith were working at the Sub Galley, and they were doing little shows in the front room there. And so we went down there and Paul McDermott and I went down there and took a look at the place, and there was like a 5,000 square foot room behind there that was R&Z Vending's warehouse.
Okay.
And, just like full of dead pinball machines and stuff. And so we talked them into leasing us that space, and that's what became Aardvark.
Okay, yeah.
So we negotiated. We bought the Sub Galley. We went into a deal with Ray Ackrey, who was the owner of the Sub Galley, and we bought that. And then we leased off the additional space and built Sub Galley.
Oh, geez.
So that was our first foray into legit nightclub, which in retrospect we probably should not have done.
Oh, really?
Because we were bankrupt within a couple of years. So by 96 we were bankrupt. So oh well.
It's life.
Yep.
It's rock and roll.
Yep. And then I did a personal bankruptcy, and I'd left my job at General Motors in '95 to do that.
Okay.
Wow.
So there was a couple of years there where I wasn't an engineer, and then in '99, that was like when I stopped doing shows. Then I went back into industry. I worked for a company called APS Materials, doing a company that builds and manufactures medical implants, and I did that for the last 22 years of my career.
Okay.
So anyway,
So in '99, you never did another show, never booked another show again after.
I've done a handful.
Okay.
I've done a handful of shows since then.
Okay.
But I do do something at Bob's every once in a while. I did that. What was it? Erica. I did Erica Winterstrom a few times.
Okay.
Did her out at McGuffey's. I did her on the whatever here.
Yellow Cab.
And at Brightside.
Okay.
Now she does it all herself, but I got her into those. But we did a show at the old diner. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was with
Yeah.
Erica and Kelly and Paige were the three. It was all girl band bill.
Oh, cool.
We did it. That was anyway.
I remember. I forgot.
That was that. That's just been a few years.
So just going back,
I've probably done like since '99. I've probably done like maybe 10 things.
Okay.
But
The if you go into discord.com, you can from what it looks like, you can actually download the Fugazi show from 1470.
1470, yeah.
10/4/95. It says the door was $5.
There you go.
yeah, that was it. Ian insisted on that.
Well, and I think they were pretty, hardcore about album prices and all that. They were very much like, let's get this music into the hands of people and make it accessible and not gouge on prices. But it's pretty wild if this is accurate. There's actually a picture there, and it says
there's
attendance 826 people.
Wow.
At that show.
That's a big
wow,
show.
okay.
That is a big show, and played with. It says Makeup and Trusty were the two bands. that
Okay,
have been on
yeah, those
there.
are the two out of town.
Okay.
I think there was a local on there, but I don't remember.
Yeah, there's no mention of that on this, but we could probably find that elsewhere because I'm sure there's some other information. I just am surprised that show was recorded and is out there for
Right. Well,
anybody to buy.
aren't all their shows?
Yeah, it looks like this is their whole. It's called the Fugazi Live series on Discord.com.
Yeah, I think they've got them all in there.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of stuff. They must have. It's interesting from a band like that to have recorded everything. All right, so let's run down the different places because we've gone through a ton, and you've mentioned.
Well, like I said, that's why it's called New Space. Cause
I like
It's a
that
new
too.
space. I know, that's cool.
I think the best one was the warehouse on Springfield Street.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that
And
one.
what was it about that room you thought that was the best?
It
or
was
space?
just what was so nice about it is that you would drive down Springfield Street and then you pull in and you go through a gate, a chain link fence gate, and you drive around down behind the building and park. So then it was important. The police would be driving up and down Springfield Street, and you just
Have no
see a
idea.
vacant building.
Oh wow!
There's no cars parked there. There's nothing. So it was completely incognito.
Wow.
And no occupancy permit, no bathrooms.
It had to be incognito because otherwise you were getting shut down.
Right. And then that's how that one ended. We were there a year. We told the landlord, he goes, well, what are you doing with this space? Since it's band practice space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And recording studio. That's what we told the landlord.
There happened to
And
be
then
several dozen people.
one Saturday night, he just was driving down Springfield Street and wandered in, and there's 400 kids, stage diving, and so back then that was before cell phones.
Yes.
It's like 90, and 90, 91 maybe.
Yeah.
And he, like, the closest payphone was up at, like, at Springfield Street and First Street or whatever. There's a something bandbox, a little bar there. And he drove his car down there, got on the phone, called Dayton cops. And by the time they responded and they all came back, we cleared everything out.
Oh my gosh.
It's just like the cops came in and I'm like sweeping the floor. It's like, but what was weird
Nothing to
is
see
that
here, officer. Sorry.
it was an old slaughterhouse, and it was, get this, it was dead of winter. It was like, 20 degrees outside, but from what happened is when you'd get a big crowd in there,
Yeah.
that it would just, the walls would be sweating.
Oh, geez.
It was like, it had like these white ceramic tile walls because it was a slaughterhouse, and they, whatever, that was sanitary for whatever 1880 when it was built. And anyway, so the cops come walking in, and the band is sitting there, and they're all covered in sweat.
Yeah.
And Paul McDermott's there, and the cops go, what's going on here, And I said, well, we just did a recording session with this band, and the cops are walking in there, and it's like 100 degrees. It's 100 degrees in there, but we had it all cleaned up. Had all the, it was like knee deep in beer cans.
Oh,
and
my
we
gosh.
got it all put in trash cans and moved over into our other room. We had like a complex of like 3 or 4 rooms. And we had it completely cleaned up by the time,
Wow.
the landlord came back with the cops, but we were out.
Yeah. That was your favorite space, you think?
That was my favorite space. Yeah.
Yeah.
It should have never, but you know what? We should have probably never. The back in the day when we were doing rental halls,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing, warehouse spaces, that was probably what I should have kept on doing.
Yeah.
Instead of. Actually trying to buy and build my own club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, anyway. And when we went into, everything changed when we, like I said, 94, when we went into the Palace Club, and 95 into 1470, and then had our own club, Sub Galley.
Yeah.
Everything was different after that.
Do you think that's because of the pressure just to pay the bills over the overhead of having?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just, whatever. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's not
Well,
as...
I mean, if you're setting up shop, I don't know what kind of deal you had in place for the warehouse space there on Springfield Street, but if you're kind of almost like a gypsy promoter just moving around from place to place, there's also a freedom that doesn't lock you into a lease or electric or water or liquor license probably at that point.
And everything was, we were all ages.
Yeah.
Every show I ever did was all ages.
Another
know,
thing that will
we'd have to
put a block up.
If you go into a club, you've got to make special provisions,
Right, yeah.
with the club owner to to allow that to happen. So,
and I'm sure none of that felt very romantic in the moment that you were throwing these shows and cleaning up and doing all that. But do you have a kind of fondness looking back on those things?
oh sure,
Yeah.
it was I've got no regrets. Like you're talking about like a favorite show.
Sure.
We did I think we did Brainiac at the Lithuanian Club
Oh, geez.
rental hall there.
Yeah.
And I remember that show because we had like 400 people, and there was just a staff of 2.
Oh, geez.
And Paul running sound, and me at the door.
Oh,
And that was it. That was the entire staff. And no security, no anything.
No
Just
merch
me
or-
basically sitting on a cooler selling cans of pop.
Oh, my gosh.
And Paul running sound, and like having to, if there was a fight would break out, he'd have to go deal with it. The sound man would have to break away from the soundboard to go. But back in those days, the crowd was they were very possessive. So if anybody started any trouble, like there'd be, somebody be like in the pit or whatever, and they start in trouble, you would just see them, and they would just be elevated up over the heads of the kids, and they would just pass him out to the edge and drop him down.
Really?
Yeah, that would be it. You know, the crowd would kind of take care of everything on its own.
Yeah, policing themselves.
Yep.
The Lithuanian club. It's Dayton. I'm sure other cities are like this. We have all these different like Lithuanian, Czechoslovakian, German, like all these different clubs that are around.
Yeah, the Lithuanian. I think it became. Has that become what became the Slovak? Or I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah.
It's out on Valley Street.
Yeah.
You did a show off of Route 4. It was like it's supposed to be like a Woodstock, didn't you?
Oh, that was.
We as Tim, we played that show.
That I think was another friend of mine, Dave D'Angelo.
Okay.
I think Dave did that one. That kind of that hippie fest thing out there at that park on off of Route 4.
Dan's coming out as
but
a
I
hippie
helped.
today.
But I stage managed, and he's another old friend of mine from my high school days. From Wayne, I went to Wayne, and the D'Angelos were
There you go.
a big family out there.
He still owes Tim $75. So.
Oh, okay.
With interest. What is it now?
Well, he owns a 70s rock shop up in Inglewood.
Oh, does he? Cool.
You know where to find them.
Yeah, if you know about that place.
Yeah.
That's Dave.
Okay, cool.
This podcast, one, is not looking for gotcha moments, and two, we're not airing grievances either.
No.
It was a joke. It was a joke. Jeez. That's awesome.
Well, that reminds me of when you say that. I was before I was ever a promoter. I went to me and a group of my friends. We went to see Butthole Surfers up at Newport Music Hall in Columbus.
Yeah.
So the show's over. We're walking down the sidewalk, and I'm walking along, and then all of a sudden, this guy comes running down the sidewalk, and as he passes me, he hits me in the face, sucker punches me, and keeps running off down the sidewalk. And my friends then all take off and catch him. Uh-huh. So anyway, this Bob Kramer, like I was, who owns Sound Force,
Right.
Him and Chuck King and Dennis Schlichter and a bunch of other my friends, they're down there and they're beating the crap out of him. Down High Street a little further. So I picked myself up because when he hit me, I went into this girl, Karen Frabel. Not me and her both went down on the ground. So I go, where's my glasses? Where's my glasses? Karen finds my glasses, hands them to me. We run off down the sidewalk, catch up with him. So we catch up to the guy, and they're like, I could quit beating on him. You know, I say to my friends, and I go, why? Why did you do that? You know, and he goes, my band played a show in Cleveland. You were the promoter, and you owe us, whatever. You stiffed us out of $100. And I go, I'm Ken Gross. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. No, I did not book any shows in Cleveland, which is weird because that was like 2 years before I ever became a promoter.
Oh, wow.
So that was God telling me,
There
You're
go.
going to be a promoter.
don't do this.
Don't stiff anybody.
Don't be a promoter. But yet I went on to do it.
Oh, man.
So at any rate,
Wow.
that was
Incredible. I don't know if we want to ask any like philosophical questions. We've talked a little bit with some of the folks who have been around the scene from the eras, Ken, that you were, and one of the things we talk about is what do you think it is about Dayton that, I mean, obviously you had a hand in bringing in some pretty cool bands on the Ascendancy, but what do you think it was about Dayton that was also fostering a local music scene that was pretty thriving? I mean, anything from a promoter's perspective, why was there such a vibrant music scene here, and from your estimation?
I don't know. I just would think it would be the same thing everywhere, but
I don't know.
I don't know.
Again, I was really fortunate to have come up, in a time when there were, like I said, like my granddaddy promoter is Jim Carter, and then my daddy promoter is Chuck King. Mm-hmm. So, all I did was follow in their footsteps.
And came up parallel with Mick Montgomery as well.
Right. And then, in parallel with Mick, and then I don't know if you've seen the Spin article on Dayton?
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Right. Yeah. And it's about Mick and I. Mm-hmm. That's what, 94 or something?
Sounds about right.
Something like that. Yeah. But, it's so nice that like Ben Parker, Ben, he worked for me at the Sub Galley.
Okay.
And so then he went on and did Club Safari and Elbows and
Okay.
and then
Man, I missed
and
that
so
video.
so you can everybody who's doing shows today,
Mm-hmm.
like Jeff Opt, I helped Jeff Opt get this place off the ground.
Okay.
I helped him, worked on the electric here, and just stuff like that. The parking lot lights didn't work, and I had to pull some wire and get the parking lot lights working. Just stupid stuff. They had problems when they first got this place. They had problems with the furnace. Me and Jeff figured it out. This is before anybody had any money, did anything. We did it all ourselves. But like Ben, he's still around. He did Rockstar Pro Arena and then Turnbuckles, and now he's doing shows at Cosmo Joe's. But he's also doing shows in Columbus. He does big shows in Columbus.
Huh.
And I'm trying to hook him up with Libby over at Brightside.
Okay.
And he's got like an out of town band. It's kind of gone full circle.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's out of town bands that he wants to book in Dayton.
Yeah.
And he contacts people around here like Bob's or the Brightside or here, Yellow Cab, and they're already booked up.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just like your hands are tied. It's like all local bands.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 30 years ago, all over again.
Yeah.
Ben can't. He's got all these cool out of town acts that he wants to bring to Dayton, and then now he's doing it at Scully's in Columbus, or he's at the Athenaeum in Columbus. So it's but that's neither here nor there. But it's nice to see that. Probably what makes me feel best about what I did was that Nate Mendenhall was a kid who went to my shows.
Okay.
And that was the inspiration for Bob's.
Okay. Blind Bob's here
And the same with Jeff. That's the inspiration for Yellow Cab. And the same for Libby. That's the inspiration for Brightside.
Yeah.
So I feel like, oh my God, I feel like I ended kind of in failure. I gave up, I quit, but yet from the ashes, look at what we have today.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of I can that is what I'm the most happy and the most proud about.
Yep.
To see these that even in a small way that that you inspired what's still going on today.
Yeah.
And then you like I said, you've interviewed other people, and it does me good, that whatever that they would bring me, they would mention me,
We didn't have to fish.
But we all feel like, I think all of us old timers, we all feel like individually, we did our part.
Yeah.
But there's really no dominant figure. I mean, we all chipped in a little bit here and there, and that's the true, that's the true meaning of scene.
Yes,
right there, is that there is no God. It's just we're all just, like I said, doing our part.
Yeah, not one person doing it all. It's everybody. Yeah, I just think, man, how cool would it have been if before Mick passed to get like you and Mick and Rev Cool in a circle to talk about everything together and record that, would have been amazing. But it's also why we're doing this.
And Jim is so humble.
Yeah.
I mean, he is just, he does his radio show, and he's
a funny guy too.
He won't even, you say, well, all these shows you did, Jim.
Yeah.
And, he'll never bring it up. He'll never talk about it.
I guess that's a goal.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to have him on so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
I remember his first show. He did at like 1977 at Eastwood Park. He did like the Smoke In.
Oh, geez.
It was like, a legalization rally thing. And it was like I said, I knew his wife, from high school.
Yeah.
Said she gets a hold of me and says, "Yeah, come out to the smoke-in," and that's sort of how I met Jim.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it's amazing. Shawn, Dan, you guys have any other questions?
Yeah,
I don't have a question. My sister-in-law was in a ska band and played at Sub Galley, and my wife and mother-in-law went for. I was working. I didn't get to go, but I know that's still a big memory in our family too. So you give
which band was that?
the Scarlet Letter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I'll
she
be
was
darned.
a horn player.
The ska,
Right.
only a ska band could have that
I
kind of
wanted
name.
to be in a ska band once. I took trumpet lessons at Howard Music.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and
awesome.
then it just I was going to join Elmo or one of those
there
bands,
you go.
and it didn't happen. They all broke up, and then it was like ska band's hard to put together. I did.
Oh, yeah.
One I did a show. I did Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
Really?
At Sub Galley.
Did you really?
And we we put them we put a sheet of plywood on the pool table and put the horn section and all those people up on the pool table, and then the rest of the band was just clustered around this pool table,
Wow.
and then we just pushed it all back in the corner, and that was. And we had we just packed the place out and then opened up the front door, opened up the side door. People kind of flowed out onto the sidewalk. That was before we had the back room.
Wow.
But also, that's a kind of an unknown show. Not too many people know about. We did No Doubt.
Really?
Yeah, they played the Sub Galley.
You keep pulling this stuff
I'm like,
out.
no, I think we're done. No, we're not done.
There was like 10 people there.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And that's when you came up with your rule of 10.
Yeah. That's where we came up with the rule of the rule of 10. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so rapid fire then. We've obviously, I think there's probably stuff we've not got to, but what?
Sure.
Just throw. If there's no other bands we've talked about, just throw out. We don't have to go into story time, but what other bands came through that you toured that you can remember?
Oh God. I don't know, like Jawbreaker or
Okay.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Let's see. God, who the hell? See, that's what I mean. That's what sucks about getting old.
That's why we're trying to remember this.
Well,
stuff
that's
in
why.
real
That's
time,
why I said, I mentioned before,
Yeah.
that I think that these sort of things work better when you have a group.
Yeah.
Like you said, you
Yeah.
got Jim Carter and Mick and I, and
Yeah.
Nick Kazernis and Jamie Holiday.
Yeah.
If you put together a group of 10 people,
Yeah.
oh my God, we would jog each other's memory.
That's right. I mean, that's the
would
benefit of having-
It would be
yeah.
really crazy.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff that I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sorry.
That's cool to get your perspective.
It
Yeah,
is.
it is.
Absolutely.
Versus Jamie's and
Yeah.
Nick's, and
Yeah.
Yeah. And
you had a unique man. It's crazy how you're pulling stuff out of I was friends with Joe Walsh. What? It's just crazy.
I slept on
great.
his couch for 3
Yeah,
months.
it's like
Well, like I said, it was great. Like I said, great. And meet him at a cocktail party, 40 years later.
So
Who the hell are
wild.
you?
Well, he's
I don't remember you. Who the
lot
hell
of,
are you?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
that's
or-
crazy.
Well, and the other cool thing is memories like Dan was sharing. You've had an impact on not only people who are at those shows or remember those shows, but people whose bands aren't remembered, but are a memory for them and their friends. And
Sure.
that's the other impact of a local scene is promoters, bands, musicians, sound guys, club owners. All of these people have had a hand in creating memories. And what we want to do on this podcast is just share some of those stories. And yes, someone's going to be listening to you, Ken, and be like, oh, he forgot to mention this, or he forgot to
Right,
mention
right.
that show. Why would he not mention this show? And
But as we've said, everyone that we've interviewed up to you, Tyler talked about
Tyler Trent from
yeah,
Brainiac.
going to your show and $5 at the show and seeing everybody. Jamie talked about doing shows with you and going to your shows.
Yep.
It's just you have made an impact on this community And, bands like Brainiac that have come through and, because of you, feel that they can go on and do other things. And I think as a legacy, you should definitely
amazing.
be proud of that.
Yeah, you should be proud of your time and what you did. And maybe it didn't end the way that you wanted, but you had a great impact on this scene, this community, and we're thankful for that.
Yeah.
Well, that was like, my ending. It was sort of, it was like the kind of the ending for 1470 as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Because my ex-wife Deanna, she was a manager at 1470, and that's how I got in there.
Okay.
Well, Dwayne Wheeler DJ was my friend, but that's how I met Deanna. Dwayne got me into 14, and then I met Deanna, and then she and I began a relationship, and we have a child together. And but Tom, Deanna was managing 14, and I was her assistant. This is after, it's like when Sub Galley went belly up.
Uh-huh.
Tom told Deanna to go over to Sub Galley and hire every single one of us.
Okay.
Wow.
And so Tom absorbed our entire staff into the 1470 staff.
Wow.
And, which was like 20 people. I mean, and so I became assistant manager at 1470 and started doing shows there. And anyway, when Tom died, his kids came in and took over the club. By this time, we'd moved it downtown.
Yeah, moved from Kettering off of Dorothy downtown.
So there was sort of like, even though the club moved downtown and was supposed to continue on, Tom didn't last too much longer. Yeah. It was only like a year in, and then Tom died. His kids came in, took over. Me and Deanna were gone. His kids decided they were going to do it a different way, and so that was when I stopped doing shows. It's when the old 1470 died, and so that was like a big turning point in '99. Yeah, like I tell people all the time, I went from taking care of everybody else's kids to having kids of my own.
Yeah.
And so I was 47. I had my first child.
Wow.
At 47, and then I had another one a year later. And like I said, they've gone on. They're college graduates.
Yeah.
And out on their own. And I've got 6-year-old twins now. Wow. So I'm starting all over with the kids. So I've been raising kids for 25 years.
Yeah.
So, but here's another thing. To really kind of perspective. I did shows for 10 years.
Yeah.
So here I am. I'm 71 years old.
Yeah.
That's
10 years.
That's such a when you compare the 10 years that I did shows to to the span of a lifetime, it's not much.
It's a blink of an eye, a snap of a finger.
And and it's been it's not going to be too much longer. It's going to be 30 years since then.
Yeah.
So it's
it's pretty cool to look back on that time and that period and see what all you
did a lot in 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, you did a lot of shows in 10 years.
Yeah, I did about 1,000 shows.
Wow.
So
100 shows a year.
And like you said, the people you inspired.
Well, a lot
have
of
kept
that
it
was
going.
a lot of that was 2 years of Sub Galley doing a show every day.
Yeah.
So if you knock that out, if you take that out,
you're still doing two.
It's just like every weekend.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like I said, I was a hobbyist.
Yeah.
And I used, I tell people all the time. I said, well, you can thank GM, because that's, how many shows the show is over, and I'd be me and the band standing at the ATM. I go, how much do you need?
Wow.
How much do you really need? As I pull money out of the ATM.
Wow.
Wow. And then I, not that I spent on Sub Galley, we spent about $1.5 million. And it's all gone.
Wow.
All gone. Plus I filed personal bankruptcy.
Wow.
Beyond that.
Yeah.
So it's like I cashed in my retirement plan, and You
They
know,
were all in.
cashed in my retirement plan, and Paul McDermott did the same thing, and we spent it all, and we ran up, a stack of credit cards. We maxed out a stack of credit cards, and then we closed the door and filed bankruptcy.
Wow.
So it's that's how that went.
It's wild.
Wow.
So
Absolutely wild. Guys, anything else question wise?
This has been a great.
Man,
We've never met, and so it's
Right.
a pleasure to meet you. And I mean, your name when we were playing music, it was like your name came up all the time, and now it's coming back. And so
as we talk about the history.
you have an interesting life and such a wow. It's just I'm blown away. So
Yeah. Ken, we thank you for your time,
Thank
and we
you.
thank you for your stories.
Thanks for
and,
having me.
Yeah.
I can't wait for people to hear, everything you were up to and about in the Dayton music scene and pulling bands through.
yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you
and,
for having
we look
me.
forward
I
to seeing
appreciate
you
it.
around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks.
Okay.
Ken.
Thank you.
See you.
Gotta bring it around again. Bring it